Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay with us as the Suns get set to shine.
Here's Perry, to Gar. Here's the jump shot.
Comes to Marley, a long three. He got it! He got it! Into Booker. Here's the three. Suzanne! Oliver, Sir Charles, and he flies in for a wham, bam, slam. Bravo time! He got it! Suzanne! Oh, brother!
Hello and welcome everybody to the first episode of the 7 Seconds or Less podcast. This is a podcast about both the NBA generally and the Phoenix Suns specifically. I'll explain that a little later. My name is Max. If you're listening to this, you may already know me as MaxMCC11 on Twitter. I'm joined by my co-host. He's all the way from Melbourne, Australia. You may know him already as the 4-Point Play on Twitter. It's David Nash. How you doing, David?
Good, thanks, Max, and really excited to get stuck into this.
We decided we'd start a podcast. We both really like the Phoenix Suns and the NBA, don't we?
It was a snap decision.
It was.
Got to thank Evan for having us on the other day on his podcast, Locked On Suns. I'm sure you all listened to that if you're already listening to this. And we're going to jump in. Yeah,
so we realized that there's already a lot of NBA podcasting out there and a lot of Phoenix Suns podcasting out there. And we're not starting this because we think that we're better than them. We're humble guys, but we sort of view all the podcasts as either being categorized generally as NBA podcasts, things like the Low Post, Dunked On, things that don't focus on the Phoenix Suns, or there's also the podcasts out there that focus exclusively on the Suns. Locked On Suns, Empire of the Suns, Solar Panel, just to name a few of those. And we think that we can sort of add to the conversation by having our podcast be about the NBA generally, but with a focus on the Phoenix Suns. Did I describe that right to you, David?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much where we're going with this. And enjoy a lot of Suns content already. We're just hoping to bring something a little different.
Yeah, exactly. And on that point, our first 3 episodes are going to be a general mock draft. We're going to do a mock draft of the whole lottery plus up to 16 for the Suns, but we're going to focus on the Suns the whole way through. So, each time we talk about a prospect for the team that drafts him, we're also going to talk about his fit with the Phoenix Suns. Today's episode is going to be just 1 through 8. The second episode we'll do 9 through 16, and then the third episode we will do the second round guys as well as draft day trades. But before we get started with 1 through 8, I'm gonna throw it over to David for what's gonna be a recurring segment on the show. David?
Yeah, so I'm gonna try and bring a little history to the pod early on in every episode, and with our first 3 episodes being focused around the draft. The first one's gonna be definitely focused on what was the highest pick the Suns have ever had before the 2018 draft, and that is twice we've picked at number 2. The most famous of those, did you know, Max, was, of course, for Neil Walk. So Neil Walk, as we know, was the consolation prize, or some say the booby prize, to Lou Alcindor, or later known as one other than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
I've heard of him, yeah.
Yeah, he had a pretty good career. Definitely a better career than Neil Walk. Mm-hmm. Both centers. Neil was 6'10", 220 from Ohio, and definitely played the 5 position. 69 was the draft, and he went on to play a few seasons for the Suns. The 72-73 season was probably his best. It was a losing season with Connie Hawkins, and he averaged 20.2 points per game, 12.4 rebounds, and 3.5 assists. Not a bad season, really, for what's known as the bus pick for the Suns. He did lead the league in one category in that season, and that was 323 personal fouls.
Wow.
Average of 4 per game. So he didn't last much.
Did Kareem Abdul-Jabbar ever lead the league in personal fouls? I think not.
Exactly. Neil's got that on him forever. Yeah, so he went to the New Orleans Jazz. Shout out the New Orleans Jazz. Let's hope one day they
I
go
miss
back
that.
to
That name is
that
so
name.
good.
It really is. And then he finished his career with the New York Knicks. I found a great quote from Neil, which I think was said much later in his life rather than in his playing career, and that was, I never paid attention to that bullshit. How many guys would love to be the second overall pick? And I just thought that was a great quote when we're looking at, the Doncic Ayton comparisons and debate at the moment. This guy was just really damn happy to be second overall and didn't care that, one Kareem went before him.
Yeah, I don't blame him. If I were picked number 2 in the draft, I'd be pretty happy too, I think. In fact, any NBA teams out there that might be listening, feel free to put me on your board. I'd happily go to your team at number 2.
I'm sure you'd be a better pick than Anthony Bennett at 1.
I don't know about that, actually. I might be the only person to be worse.
Finishing up on Neil. In 1990, so much later on in his career, he actually received an accolade from the White House, U.S. President George H.W. Bush. It was an Athlete of the Year. Can you think it maybe at 1990 how the hell he received an Athlete of the Year award?
Did I forget about some sort of thing where every other athlete went on strike, or what happened?
He definitely didn't roll out as an old man in the NBA in the 90s, that's for sure. He was the Wheelchair Athlete of the Year in 1990, and that was because he had surgery. I believe it was from a terminal disease, maybe. I probably should know that, but he ended up in a wheelchair and started playing wheelchair basketball.
Wow.
So it was a cool little footnote to his athletic career. And then he eventually passed away, actually, just a few years ago in 2015 at the age of 67. So,
well, shout out to Neil Walk. I'm going to try to avoid the obvious joke about Neil Walk and being the wheelchair athlete who won the award, but
yeah, let's not go there.
Okay. Okay. Well, in honor of the segment, the Neil Walk segment, let's do a coin flip to decide who's going to select first in our mock draft 1 through 8. Do you happen to know, by the way, did the Suns choose heads or tails in the
so the Suns got to make the call, and I believe they picked heads, Max. So
did they?
I'm going to give this to you. You've got the pick, and winner gets to take number 1 in our mock.
Okay. I'm going to go with tails. I'm going to try to avoid what happened to them.
Okay, let's see if it's lucky for you. Tails it is.
Hey, how about that? I'm exercising the demons of Suns Past.
Which we already managed to do as a collective by keeping that number 1 pick in the 18 draft. So
yes, we did.
Well done. You have the honor of, I believe, more than likely taking Luka Doncic.
So I know McDonough has said that we're going to consider multiple guys here. I think he mentioned specifically Michael Porter Jr., Bamba, and Bagley.
That's what I read, yeah.
Yeah, I don't buy it. I think it's coming down to Ayton or Doncic. There's a strong case to be made for Ayton. I've been tweeting about this a lot lately. Ayton's really gone way up my board because I'm trying very hard to do what U of A fans tell me to do and take him out of that U of A system and not punish him too much for how bad he's looked there, and think about him more in an NBA defense. I see the tools, I see the quickness, I see the athleticism. I really think that dude can get out in the perimeter and defend if he has the mental capacity for it. I mean, the dude, he is a freak at 7'1". He is so quick. He moves so well laterally for a guy his size. If that guy could actually get out and stay on the perimeter and track NBA guards and wings around, I mean, that'd be invaluable, right? Because you'd be able to stay with a 7'1" guy in a modern pace and space game. I can't imagine more of a matchup advantage than that. You'd be able to punish people.
I totally agree, and I've done a little bit the same, kind of, trying to give him the benefit of the doubt and really look into it. I think a lot of it is scheme based, a lot of it's coaching based.
Yep.
I had a good chat to a Twitter friend, new Twitter friend the other day, U of A fan, who essentially took me through a lot of that stuff that I was already thinking.
Oh yeah, you're talking about Johnny, right?
Yeah,
I can't
Johnny,
remember his full
great guy.
name, his whole Twitter name, but yeah, I like him a lot. He's smart.
He is, and he's clearly watched a lot of U of A basketball, a lot more than I have. And I just asked him a couple of questions around scheme and coaching and things that I thought were maybe negatives towards how Ayton looked in the college season. And I would say, if anything, he kind of confirmed both good and bad for me. I'm not really convinced that Ayton's going to be able to get out there and play in a switchy defense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably more convinced. I posted in my giant Igor thread a couple of weeks ago. His kind of preferred pick and roll defense, and I was really worried about Ayton even being able to play in that defense, and that's where I've kind of really improved my Ayton's prospects as an NBA center, in my opinion.
Yeah, and so let's get to the offense just a little bit. I'm not gonna drill too much in Ayton because I'm not gonna pick him number one. But I do want to talk to you a little bit the offense. So kind of going to the point I was making earlier about him possibly being able to stay on the floor. Do you think? So one of the points I've heard made against Ayton is that the post offense isn't going to be as valuable in the NBA as it is in college because you need an elite offensive skill in the NBA in the pace and space game. You need to be able to shoot, pass, or handle the ball really well at your size. And Ayton really hasn't shown that he can do those things. But if he's able to stay on the floor against small lineups, doesn't that kind of neutralize that problem? Because his post offense will be much more dominant against 6'8", 6'9" guys.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if they can keep him out there, there's not too many guys that would match up, awfully well to him. I think, on one hand, you're right. There's not going to be a lot of low post offense run through him in the NBA. Not from my opinion anyway, unless they, completely change the way that, both Phoenix and most NBA teams are playing right now. But, he can pass over the top, and he can probably pass over the top of a lot of NBA centers,
Right.
a lot of NBA starting centers. So, if he can stay on the floor defensively, then that it's going to open up, a massive amount of things. And, I kind of mentioned on the pod we did previously with Evan on Locked On Suns, you mentioned the word gravity with Ayton, which is kind of the biggest thing that stands out for me.
Yep, I agree. So I sort of wanted to lead with Ayton with all that because I want to make the point that I'm taking Doncic not because I don't like Ayton. I'm taking Doncic because I love Doncic. I've been following the kid for 2 years. I think he's actually a basketball prodigy. It's just incredible the way that guy runs the pick and roll at his age. He is so far beyond his years.
And size.
And size, yeah. He's 6'8", 6'9". I've heard both. 230. McDonough called him a big boy. He is a big boy.
I love that quote from
Isn't it
Ryan.
great? The Wonder Boy is a big boy. And the dude on defense, one thing I think I've heard people who don't like Doncic come back with on him a lot is, hey, his defense is just as bad as Deandre Ayton's. I don't even think that's true. His defensive metrics in Europe are awesome. The dude's so smart.
I think if you look at a couple of people, and Jacob Goldstein's another great follow on Twitter for anyone listening who's not following. Jacob E. Goldstein does a lot of stat work and released some pretty cool stats the other day on Doncic's ACB, defensive box plus minus and offensive and total. And particularly in that league, he was very, very good. Not so good in the Euro League, but I think the problem with the Doncic conversation, at least that I have, is that his defense is discussed mainly as a primary initiator stopper.
Yep.
or point guard, to be more traditional, and it's just not where he's going to play in the NBA. It's pure and simple. So, I mean, I understand people having a problem with him being. Well, I don't understand. It's hard for me to understand, but I get people's point of view that if he's playing point guard on offense, then he should be guarding points as well. As much as that might be a bit of an old school mentality, but it's just not.
He's not going to guard point guards. He's not going to guard point guards.
Exactly, and
I
he's
stream
shown that
that.
he's very good at not guarding point guards and instead guarding threes and sometimes fours.
I'm going to tell you right now, this might sound like a hot take, but we just got done watching Houston Golden State game 5, and PJ Tucker was playing center for a lot of the game. There's a better chance Luka Doncic plays small ball center than there is that he guards ones.
I would agree with that. I don't know if I'd want to see him there, but
It's not going to happen. But there's a better chance of it happening.
Yeah, and there's even in some of the recent games from Doncic in the Final Four, he's a willing help defender at the 4, and he'll come across and try and block shots. There was that one play where I don't know if he quite got a piece of it, but he definitely forced the dunk miss, and took it down for that kind of dagger pull up. So
I think he's going to play the 4 a decent amount in the NBA, I think.
Yeah, and I think that just rolls into my argument for him as you may start Jackson, Booker, and Doncic at point guard through small forward, but I think Cole Zwicker made another great point on a pod that I listened to the other day. Is like when it gets to rolling out your best lineups to win games, he's going to be at the 4. Yep. And you're hopefully going to have a dominant 5 next to him. It's kind of, as much as I don't believe the reports, it's if they are favouring Doncic, I can certainly see why they'd be willing to give max money to someone like Clint Capella. Yep. Because he kind of fixes a lot of those those issues.
And people say things like, "What if a team employs a big bruising power forward and just starts punishing Doncic?" Well, okay, how are you going to guard Booker, Doncic, and Josh Jackson if you have a center and a big bruising power forward on the floor? There's just no chance.
Exactly, and not to keep kind of plugging things that I've put on Twitter, but that was kind of the end of my big Igor thread. Was you roll those 3 guys out, you make sure that they're all adept at running the offense and running certain plays that suit their skills, and you just make teams pick their poison. So they may shut down one or find a good matchup for one. So then you just start running the offense through one of the others. And the simple fact is that if the other team's playing a more traditional lineup, a point guard or a traditional 4-man is going to be on one of those 3 guys, and you're going to be able to, against most teams, exploit one of those matchups. So, good luck. You can argue, until we're, over it in a month's time about how it's going to fit on defense for the Suns. But, my big thing is, how the hell are other teams going to stop that?
Yep, that's exactly how I look at it. Okay, that's enough raving about Luka Doncic. Let's go to you for number 2. Your Sacramento. Who are you taking?
I'm going to go Ayton. I think, we don't really need to discuss him at length because we probably already did. Some of that was Sun specific, but more his game in general. If I'm Sacramento, I've taken Willie Cauley-Stein recently. Didn't quite work out, even though I think he's probably still, got a future in the NBA. Been enamored with guards recently. Lost Boogie Cousins, of course. I can't see them passing Ayton up, whether I agree with it or not from a best player available standpoint. It's kind of tough with Sacramento. If it was my big board, I'd be picking Jackson. It's not it's not a great fit with Sacramento, even though you shouldn't be too concerned with fit at the top of the board. But I just think with what their priorities are, what they've been trying to do, very similar to the Suns, sick of winning. I just cannot see them passing up on Ayton, to be honest.
I agree with you. They would take Ayton, I think, if the Suns take Doncic. One thing that really excites me about the fit on Sacramento is, I've been trying to think about it. I cannot think of an NBA history of a pick and roll that would be more athletic and quick and fun than De'Aaron Fox and Deandre Ayton. I mean, that would just be ridiculous.
Yep, I agree. And a lot of the positives that I can see on Ayton, diving and rolling with, whether it's Booker or Jackson or a more traditional point guard. You can definitely see it with Sacramento. You want to see Ayton play with smart guards, and I think that assuming Fox pans out, which I still think he will. I really like De'Aaron Fox. Playing with Fox and Bogdan Bogdanovic would be awesome. Definitely. Surround those two guys. Fox isn't a great shooter. Who knows about Ayton as a big shooter in the NBA, but surround that pick and roll with shooters, and you might have something.
Yep, and then just one more point on fit. Like you said, I don't care that they have centers. I don't care that they drafted Harry Giles or they have Willie Cauley-Stein. When you're talking about somebody like Deandre Ayton, none of that matters.
Yeah, and it shouldn't matter at pick 2 in the NBA draft.
Nope, not at all. Okay, any more on Ayton at Sacramento, or should I go on to Atlanta?
I think we should keep moving.
Okay, so I think Atlanta's going to take Bagley, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. I think that the guy that I'm going to pick is very much in consideration there, and that's Jaren Jackson Jr. I have him number 2 on my personal board. I know a lot of people are scared that he didn't play a ton in college because of foul trouble. He looked pretty raw. But when I watch that guy play, defensively, I don't think he's very raw at all. Other than the fouling, his instincts are ridiculous. That's the guy who can make split-second decisions on defense. He rotates so quickly. He looks like he's been in the NBA for 6 years and some of that stuff.
Yeah, completely multi-dimensional when it comes to playing defense, I think. And I've seen a couple of Suns fans, link his high foul rate to someone like Marquise Chris, and then how it might project. But I think it's a bit of a nitpick in that Marquise Chris fouled a lot in college and didn't play defense.
Yeah, well, also Marquise Chris fouled because he was out of position or doing dumb things.
Exactly.
Jaren Jackson's fouls are just over aggression, or he's in the right spots. He's just he's just fouling people.
Exactly.
A little bit on Atlanta's roster. I don't view them as having anybody you draft around, really. They have, 2 decent prospects. They have John Collins, sort of 6'10", power forward, nice motor. I actually think that fit would be great with Jaren Jackson. Other guy, Taurean Prince. Suns fans may remember him as the guy who was flying around, dribbling the ball, handling it as a 6'7" guy, dominating us in that late season game.
I've got to say, I love Prince.
I like Prince a lot too. The nice thing about Jaren Jackson, too, is even though you're not drafting for fit here, he fits very well with those guys.
Definitely. And, who knows what kind of new look team they're going to be under their new coach. I don't know a hell of a lot about their new coach, but...
Me neither. Lloyd Pierce, right? The guy, he was a Sixers assistant?
Yeah. I mean, the most I know about him is he kind of, helped develop LeBron. It's kind of... he didn't come into any of my calculations when I was looking at Suns coaches, but... Not to say that he's, not a great coach, but yeah, I think you're perfectly right. They don't have anyone to, build around. There's Schroeder as well, obviously on the team, whose future's a little bit up in the air, but you're probably not
Schroeder
in a position.
Sucks. He sucks.
Yeah, he does. You're not really in the right position at 3 to be, drafting a Schroeder replacement. So, I can live with that. I don't love the fit of Jackson and Collins, but again, you see what can kind of happen with that.
Expand on that. Why don't you love that fit?
It's two raw athletic guys that I essentially see play the same position. They're both 5s in my opinion.
Okay.
I think Collins is best in the NBA as a 5, and I definitely see Jackson as a 5. But I'd love to see it. You never know with these things.
So the reason, so I hear you on that. I do think they both are natural 5s in a lot of ways, but they're both pretty versatile, especially Jackson. So one of the reasons why I like Jackson so much is I really think that guy's the best bet to shoot out of any of the bigs. He shot 40% from 3 in college, 80% from the line. So I think on offense you could have him spacing the floor while you have Collins sort of doing the dive man duties.
Yeah, and we've definitely seen Jackson take some guys off the dribble for some strong moves.
Yeah.
And
he can take closeouts.
Yeah, so maybe I'm probably being a little bit too simplistic with that and doing what I kind of accuse others of doing in the kind of Doncic debate. So as I said, I'd love to see it. I'd be a little bit skeptical at this stage, but I'm totally fine with the pick. And if it doesn't work out and Jackson's as great as what we think he'll be, then you just move Collins. It's not a big deal.
Yep. And one last point I'll make on why I like JJJ to Atlanta so much is that, Atlanta is one of those teams that's in the very beginning stages of its rebuild. This is like they're going to be entering year 2 of a rebuild. Mm-hmm. This is their first chance to draft somebody with a really high pedigree. So the fact that if Jackson's as raw as some people think he is, that's fine for Atlanta. They don't mind sucking for a couple more years. They can develop him. They can have patience with him. So I love the fit. I think I actually think there's a chance they actually do that on draft night, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think he makes a lot of sense from as you say, kind of team construction standpoint and where they are in their timeline, so to speak.
Cool. All right, let's do number 4, Memphis. Who you got?
This one's tough. Mainly because Memphis is tough. They're in a weird position.
They are.
Kind of want to blow them up, but you've kind of got to understand the ownership structure there and small market team. I don't know if they're necessarily in a position to, and they're probably going to be stuck with at least Chandler Parsons' contract. Don't know if you're going to get a hell of a lot for Marcus Gasol's contract at this stage.
I wouldn't trade for him. He was bad last year.
Yeah, and I don't think there's many that would. And Conley's a whole nother beast as well with, all his health problems too. So it's a tough position. For me, looking at who's kind of there, you've got Bamba, you've got Bagley, you've got Porter Jr., Carter would be a safe bet for lack of a better term. But I'm probably going to go with Bagley. I like the fit currently. I like the fit with Gasol. Particularly to start with. I mean, I'm sure people probably argue that Bagley might project to be more of a 5 going forward in best lineups, but I kind of just see Bagley as proves both sides right, if that makes sense. So if they do tend to bottom out, Bagley's the kind of guy that you could hopefully build around. But he should be able to slot in there straight away if Memphis is kind of aiming for an 8 seed playoff spot next season, which is kind of where I expect them to go.
Yeah, they're definitely going to try to win now, and I would have taken Bagley too. I think that's almost an obvious pick. I think Memphis pretty much runs to the podium if he's available there, because there's a lot of upside there for the future, but also given his motor and his athleticism, that guy is going to be helping right away. And they're going to be very attracted to that, I think.
Exactly. I think you look at Memphis in the last couple of seasons, they've really, ever since they lost or went away from Zebo, basically, they've really kind of tinkered with trying to find the right 4-man. You got JaMychal Green, and they've rotated a few others through there from, a couple of D-League guys and such. So they've really been looking for that guy to play next to Mark. And, with how Gasol stepped out in recent times, and his passing ability too, you kind of could create a nice little 1-2 combo there with Bagley having all the space he needs inside and someone like Mark looking after him on the defensive end. Yep,
I totally agree. Do you have anything more to say about Bagley and Memphis, or I kind of we forgot to talk about Jackson and Bagley's fit in Phoenix. I think we should do that a little bit before we go on.
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of touch back on that. I don't love Bagley in Phoenix. I don't love Bagley as a prospect, hugely, to be honest. He may struggle to be in my top 5. But I think a lot of the things we mentioned on Jackson for sure is why he's number 2 on my board overall and would definitely be number 2 on my board for Phoenix if I was picking and making that number 1 pick.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Phoenix needs passing and shooting and defense. Sorry, defense and shooting. The passing is not so great with Jaren Jackson. It's fine. He has some awareness on passing, but he's not an elite passer by any means. But he is projecting to be an elite defender and a pretty good shooter. So those are skills the Suns desperately need. Bagley, I like Bagley more than you do. He's pretty solidly in my top 5 at this point. But okay. I do agree that for Phoenix, it's not a great fit. I mean, you're almost certainly squeezing out either Chris or Bender, which neither one's shown enough where you draft around them. But at the same time, you're not trying to get rid of those guys. You'd like to see.
Yeah, I've really tried to stop myself from making those same mistakes in terms of roster construction and stuff. And as I keep saying, on behalf of other teams, as we've been going along already, it's like you don't pick this high in the draft around what you've currently got unless you're pretty sold that guy is your future starter in that position. And it definitely can't be said about Chris or Bender at the positions that they play for the Suns. And I'm probably a little bit harsh on Bagley, just as I was with Ayton early on, to be perfectly honest. In that, if I'm drafting a 5 these days, I want a defensive, game changer. And as I said, I'm totally willing to admit that that's potentially a little bit unfair on these guys, and maybe I need to go back and give Bagley a bit more of a look in. But now that we're essentially, if we're talking Suns, looking at in pretty much a 2-horse race. I've gone back and dove in on Ayton, but probably unlikely to go that far with Bagley. Although you just never know with the Suns. Maybe he's right there.
Yeah, I could see it, and I could also see them trading down and taking somebody like Bagley, if that's who they love. McDonough is not afraid to do things like that. Okay, I'm going to go on to number 5. This is Dallas. The only guy I'm really considering when I'm drafting for Dallas is Dennis Smith Jr. He wasn't awesome his rookie year by any means, but he showed this, the athleticism that everybody loved. He's dynamic. I think that he's definitely someone I don't think you take Trae Young here, for example, because that would just be the worst fit. And I think you do have to sort of consider Dennis Smith here.
Yeah, that would be a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, I just don't see why they would do that. I think the most natural fit here is Bamba. One thing that Dennis Smith Jr. is really bad at is defense. he's going to not guard anybody.
Yep.
Bamba will cover up for that. He projects to be probably the best rim protector in this class, maybe besides Jaren Jackson. But that he measured 7'10" with a 7'10" wingspan at the combine. He can touch the rim on his tiptoes. I mean, this guy's a defensive freak.
Greatest wingspan ever.
Yeah, seriously. I think he didn't shoot very well in college. I think he was like 28% from 3. There's workout videos come out recently of him draining threes. So we'll see. He's working with Chip Henlon's the guy's name, right? No, Drew Henlon.
Yeah.
Drew
Henlon. Yeah. They're killing the draft narrative, as I like to say. They're just
yes, they are, aren't they?
Really playing that game.
Well, that's one thing. Bamba is just an incredible interview.
He's a great interview, really smart guy, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's had a hand in a lot of this. Didn't have a great college season, but you look around and you read stories, and the two main things that you see about Bamba at the moment are stories in the Ben Simmons mold of not enjoying his time at college and wishing he was able to go straight from high school to the NBA, and working on his shot. And that's controlling the narrative. That's smart at this time of the year, because that cause people like us to essentially dismiss a lot of his college play just on those kind of 2 leaks.
Yep, definitely. I mean, I know I have been. And it's not just those 2 leaks to me. Bamba's one of those guys who's on the record from very early on, stating that he resents having to play in the NCAA. Yep. I think there's a lot of Ben Simmons-ishness to this situation. I think, Ben Simmons didn't play defense in college, didn't care. And as soon as he got to the NBA, he was, arguably the second-team all-defensive guy. I think Bamba's the same way. I think we're going to see a much better Bamba in the NBA than we saw in college.
Yeah, I agree. I think, just touching on Simmons is, before his college career, there was, articles and pieces written about him competing with the likes of Harden and LeBron at Nike camps, and holding his own as a 17-year-old.
Did you say Nike? Did you say Nike camps?
Yes. Sorry for the accent. Nike camps.
I love it.
So, yeah, like he was a 17-year-old guy, like competing with these guys at the in the prime of their careers, and then goes to college, and then a couple of bad articles here and there written about him, and then all of a sudden everyone thinks he's going to be a defensive nightmare, and we've seen what he's done. The only difference that I would say with between him and Bamba is, other than Bamba being a complete freak of an athlete, I've actually spent the last kind of week or so watching a lot of stuff in relation to Ayton where, Bamba pops up quite a bit, whether it's their kind of high school game against each other or one-on-one workouts prior to when they went to college. And Bamba really struggles to guard Ayton in those one-on-one situations, which, says a lot about Ayton's offensive game, but, it also said a lot about Bamba. So I'm fine with Bamba as a, weak side protector. To a lesser extent, I've kind of excited about him as a kind of pick and roll contain guy, but unless he can really put on some size and put it on quickly, he may struggle underneath the basket.
Yep, I agree, and I'm pretty nervous against him going against a team like Houston that really sells at putting guys in isolation situations. If that guy's out on an island against James Harden, that's scary. That's scary to me.
Yeah, it's scary for a lot of people.
True, yeah. To be fair, that's most people.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen it with Clint Capella. He's I'm just looking at the box score now. He played 26 minutes again tonight, but yeah, not the kind of series for big men, that's for sure.
Yep, I agree with you there. Just real quickly, Bamba's fit in the Suns. I think it makes a lot of sense. They need defense. He would provide defense. He fits pretty well with Bender and Chris too, because I think he's just, he would blot out the sun and kind of give those guys a little bit of cover on defense.
Yeah.
They won't take him, but he would fit well. All right, let's go on to number 6, Orlando.
Again, I'm in a tough position. I agree with you on Bamba. I had him matched up with Dallas at 5-2. This one's really tough for me in that it's a really good discussion on fit and best player available. You've got Carter there, you've got Young there, you've got the Bridges, and then you got the guy that I'm looking at, which is Porter Jr. I think I'm going to go with Porter Jr., which is tough because you've got Aaron Gordon, restricted free agent. Some people might disagree with this, but, I see a lot of Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon being similar type players. I think Porter Jr. measured out, around 6'10", I think, at the Combine, if I'm not mistaken. I think he can be a, small ball 5'4", quite athletic, questionable on his handle, I think, and I'm probably a little bit more questionable on his shooting than people that are a little bit higher than on Porter Jr. than I am. But just looking at who's left, I really see this as kind of a top 8 type draft, and Porter Jr. is probably too hard to ignore there for Orlando.
So, first of all, I love the pick. I think it's a great pick. As most people know, Michael Porter Jr. was a potential number 1 pick coming into his college season before he had the back injury. The offensive upside is just enormous. His shooting ability at his size would be a mismatch against any team. You bring up Aaron Gordon. I think there's a pretty good chance Orlando moves on from Aaron Gordon anyway. John Hammond didn't draft him.
That's true.
He didn't have a very good season. He didn't seem very happy to me. The whole team just had a funk to it. I could see them just wanting to, just move on from kind of everything. So I think Michael Porter Jr. makes a lot of sense. Also, when's the last time they had someone on that team who's with the offensive potential of Michael Porter Jr.? They have. It's been forever. So I love it. I love the pick. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think you've summed up my points a lot more concisely than probably what I did. I probably dragged on a little bit there, but I think you make a great point in terms of Hammond and Gordon not being his pick. Definitely didn't look happy. It might be time for Orlando to just move on from that, and Porter would be a great plan B, so to speak. So I think that's pretty much where I sit. I guess just touching on Hammond, I'd be tempted to take a guy like Trae Young because I'm quite high on him, but you just look at Hammond and his track record, and it's just so hard to see that he would pick a guy like Trae Young this early in the draft.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that if most people most GMs around the league, if they were running Orlando, would take Trae Young for the star power. potential superstar offensive upside, but he is like among the least likely GMs to do something like that, I think.
Yeah.
Real quickly, Michael Porter Jr. in Phoenix. Again, I think he projects best to the 4, so it's a little dicey with Chris and Bender, but I'm not drafting around those guys, and shooting is something we desperately need. I don't know if he can play defense or pass at all. We didn't get a chance to see that. He didn't do it at the lower levels, but yeah, the lower levels, they were kind of just letting him do whatever the hell he wanted. I think college would have been really interesting to see. We unfortunately didn't get to see it, so there's a chance he's a decent passer, decent defender, but we just really didn't get a chance to see it.
Yeah, and that's where I really struggle with evaluating him. I think you and I have spoken before about watching high school film and watching him just beat up on 5'5" white kids, and
exactly, yeah.
It's pretty good to have a nice outside shot when you're as soon as you kind of enter your shooting motion, there's just nothing between you and the rim. So he's kind of running around cones, as we like to say down here in Australia, when he was playing high school. And I brought up a guy from next year's class today on Twitter, Zion
Williamson.
I see that as a very similar kind of high school arc. And, it was kind of just bringing that up as a point in terms of, we will at least get to see Zion play college and, evaluate him a little bit more.
I'm so excited to watch him in college. I really am. I think he's going to be so fun. He's a bully, man.
He is, yeah. And it'll be good to see if he can kind of keep that upward trajectory, because that's, for me, that's what we missed out on Porter Jr. And that's why you kind of left guessing a lot.
Yep. I know. It's tough. I would love to have him in my top 3 even, but I just can't do it. I just don't know what I'm evaluating really,
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go on. Chicago at 7. For some reason it doesn't seem like they're that into this guy. But it's all smoke screens this time of year, so you don't really know. But I don't know why they wouldn't take Trae Young. They desperately need a perimeter offensive guy. Lauri Markkanen showed a lot in offense last year. I think he's going to be an awesome stretch big. But Chris Dunn, he was a little better this year, but he's not an offensive player. He's a defensive player. And I think that, first of all, I wouldn't draft around Chris Dunn. He hasn't shown enough. But I actually kind of like the fit with Trae Young and Chris Dunn, because Trae Young can play off the ball. Oh, by the way, I guess it wasn't clear. I'm taking Trae Young. Everyone knows about the shooting. I think what gets a little lost is his transformative passing. The guy has elite vision. He's an excellent passer. He can make every pass. He's short, which is something that puts him a little bit behind someone like Doncic. You can't see over the defense, but the dude, his teammates were awful last year. He had terrible teammates, and he still led the NCAA in assists. I mean, the guy is a transcendent passer. I think he would immediately transform Chicago's offense. Him and Lauri would be an awesome duo on offense. Defense is a different story. They would probably give him 125 points a game, but it's something I think you just have to figure that out later.
Yeah, I think, you've ruined my next pick, so that's my initial reaction.
Sorry, Cleveland fans.
Probably would be what Cleveland's initial reaction would be as well. But I think you make a lot of good points. I wish I could, properly credit this to someone. I saw on Twitter that, someone say, just because Chicago have a lot of mediocre guards does not mean that you do not take Trae Young if he's there at 7 on the board. I don't think they have anyone even close to someone that you wouldn't consider a point guard at this position. And yeah, I agree. Fit with Chris Dunn. Don't forget you've also got Zach LaVine. It could be a Chicago that we're not used to seeing.
They're gonna pay Zach LaVine so much, aren't they?
Oh, an awful amount of money.
Oh no, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Zach LaVine fan, unfortunately, but the roster's a little bit of a mess. Lauri was a great hit for them last year and a pretty good overall trade in the end.
Yep.
But yeah, as I said, we might see Chicago going in a bit of a different direction that we're not used to seeing, and be a kind of fast, shooting focused, quite a young team. So yeah, I'd be excited by that pick if I was a Bulls fan.
Yep, so would I. Just real quickly touching on his fit in Phoenix, off It's pretty simple. Offensively, I love it. Defensively, it would be terrifying because Devin Booker does not play defense, and Trae Young probably will not play defense. So, yeah, that's really all there is to say about that.
You can take all the, Doncic heat on defense and apply it straight to Trae Young, and it would actually make a hell of a lot more sense than what it does when you're talking about Doncic.
Because he can only guard ones, Trae Young,
exactly.
And he won't do it well.
Not at all.
Okay, let's finish this off with Cleveland. Who do you got?
As I said, this is tough now. I definitely had Young slotted in there and was hoping that he would fall. It's probably a race in 4. You've got the Bridges, you've got Carter, and you've got Smith. I would say is probably my next bet. It's tough. I think everyone touches on Cleveland being in a really tough position here. I think the reason I liked Young for them is kind of fits both, whether LeBron stays or whether LeBron goes. You take one of the Bridges, and the fit obviously with LeBron is a little bit suspect about it, particularly longer term if LeBron signs a long-term extension there. So yeah, I'm in a tough spot.
Real quick, I think you have a good point there, is that so much of what you'd want to do here depends on whether LeBron stays or goes. And what's going to make this so hard for Cleveland is, judging by history, LeBron's not going to say whether he's going to stay or go. Yeah. He's going to keep everyone in the dark.
They're going to have absolutely no idea.
Nope.
Literally none. So you're making a total guess. I think you see with the trades, they've tried to, straddle that line of giving him help at the trade deadline, but, they didn't totally... they didn't get rid of this pick, for instance, for short-term help. So I think they've definitely got one eye on, life without LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
But I still don't think it's enough to take one of the Bridges. I'm interested in a guy like Smith, and he's continuing to rise up people's boards. But I'm probably going to go safe here, mainly because I don't believe Carter deserves to slide past 8. I do think he's the kind of guy that may slide on draft night because he's just that, good all-round player, not flashy, doesn't do anything.
He's not exciting, amazing. Right?
Yeah, he's the slider, which I'm ruining a bit of a question I've got for you later. But if you pick one guy in this top 10 who looks to slide, I think Carter's that guy. So I'm going to root for him a little bit here, and I'm going to slot him in at 8 to Cleveland. The fit is obviously, somewhat suspect, but, maybe LeBron goes and therefore you look to trade Love as well for whatever you can get for him while he's still got, some value on the market, I suppose.
I think he'd have a decent amount of value. I think people are sleeping on him a little bit.
Yeah. So, you slot Carter in there as a kind of 4-5. I really like his, his passing game. I kind of looked at him a bit early on as, as a Bender type replacement. I think he would do a lot of things that, I hope Bender eventually does for the Suns and probably do them better straight away.
I totally agree with you. I think he's a better bet for sure to defend the rim than Bender is.
Mm-hmm.
His passing, I agree with you. I think he's the best passer of the bigs.
I'd agree with that.
He showed a lot of vision there. His shooting looks pretty good. I think he shot 40% from 3, right? Or a little over that, maybe.
Yeah, I'd have to take a look, but he's definitely a plus there and something to work on.
Yep. So I like this pick. I think it makes sense regardless of whether LeBron stays or goes, which is something that will be attractive to Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are kind of sleeping on his upside a little bit. The Al Horford's the comparison you hear a lot, but I think there's a chance that he's more of a volume scorer than Al Horford is.
Okay.
Because Al Horford is just unique in the way he unselfishly plays the game. I think Wendell Carter would just be a little more aggressive than he is in offense.
Yeah, I could see that. But I could also see him slotting in. I think Al Horford's a great example in terms of, him being a good locker room guy and someone that'll kind of play the role for the team. That
really smart guy too, right? Didn't he get recruited by Harvard?
I'm just going to go with you on that one.
I'm pretty sure he was deciding. Someone maybe correct me on this. I'm pretty sure his decision was between Duke and Harvard. So
okay,
he's not an idiot.
He's got that Jeremy Lin DNA.
Yeah, or Brandon Knight, right? Wasn't Brandon Knight recruited by Yale?
I believe
or Princeton,
so.
or one of those two.
Definitely known for being smart. Just not on the basketball court around the 3-point line.
Brandon Knight, they've got to get that guy not shooting long twos next year. They just have to.
I'm an Igor stan, the biggest Igor fan out there.
Wait, really? You like Igor?
just a little. I was not too disappointed with that hire. But I just think the way he teaches and the principles that he keeps his guys to, it'll go one of two ways for Knight this year once he's healthy, hopefully. I really want to see him on the court. So, he'll be at the end of the bench if he doesn't take that stuff out of his game because, Igor will yank him, or, he'll stay within the kind of rules of the team. And I think one of those things will be, make sure those toes are behind the 3-point line if you're going to shoot it. Yep.
Totally agree. And I'm hopeful because it's everything I've heard from Brandon Knight has been very positive. It seems like this time off has really got him in a good place. So
again, it could have gone one or two ways. I would have thought he could have, got really dark. Guys struggle being out of the game for that long.
Yep.
But yeah, I would 100% agree. He seemed to be in a worse place mentally before his injury, which is kind of ironic, than what he seems to be now and what we're seeing out of him. And we're even seeing him say stuff that he just wants to come back and contribute to the team, however he can, which is miles away from the preseason quotes of him not wanting to give up his starter's job and kind of being jealous of
totally.
Of
I think a big part of it was it didn't make sense when Bledsoe and Booker were here. I think it's going to be a lot better with Bledsoe gone.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Okay, so before we finish this up, we're going to turn to our last segment. It's going to be a recurring segment. I'll go ahead and let you introduce it, David, because you're going to be asking the questions.
All right, that's the 7 seconds or less segment, I believe. We're going to tie that in with the name of the pod. Kind of just a quick hitter without notice. I haven't told Max what I'm going to ask him, and other than the little clue before when I was talking about
I'm going
Carter,
in blind.
You're going in blind. So you've got 7 seconds or less to answer these 3 questions, and as you said, we'll keep it as a regular thing to end our pods.
What happens to me if I go beyond 7 seconds?
You lose your right to ask questions back at me next episode.
Oh, okay. Shit.
I'm going to be on the timer.
Okay.
All right, so number 1, I'm going to keep it simple. First time doing this, so I'm not going to stretch it too much. Who is your biggest riser in the draft in a month's time?
Does Zaire Smith count, or has he already risen?
I'm going to disqualify him.
Oh, shoot. Okay. I think Kevin Huerter. I think Herter's going to go around like 15 or 16, and people are going to be shocked by it because he's like a tall, lanky white guy who can shoot. But that guy's great. He's going to go in the top 15.
I really, really like that. That's a great pick, and shout out to Rich on Twitter.
Yeah, Rich will like that. Find the shooter.
So number 2, go on the opposite, biggest faller, and we're going to disqualify Carter because of what we already spoke about as well.
I'm going to say Miles Bridges, and teams are going to look stupid for doing it.
Okay, I can see that. That's a good pick. He shouldn't have gone back to college.
No, that was a big mistake. Not him and Robert Williams. Neither of those guys should have done that.
All right, over to 3. You're keeping to the time limit so far, which is good.
I'm trying.
I'm gonna go. It's 2-parter because I kind of need to know something off you first, and it's a little left to center, but you got to go with me here, okay?
Okay.
So, first question: who do you like more out of John Collins and Taurean Prince?
Taurean Prince, mainly because of the position that they play.
Okay, I like it. That's kind of how I framed the question, so that's good. So, draft night comes. Mm-hmm. Phoenix are on the clock. Atlanta calls. They're offering 3, 19, and Prince. And they want 1 and 16 off Phoenix. And your intel, you're pretty set on the fact that Ayton and Doncic will go 1 and 2. What do you say?
No. So the answer is no for sure. I thought you were going to say if your intel says that Doncic doesn't want to go to those teams, you think you get him at 3. But no, if Doncic is not available, then no, there's no way I'm doing that.
Okay, I can see that. I thought it might tempt you. You're kind of obviously trading back in both positions, and getting Prince as the prize, and then maybe taking a guy like Jackson, which
I like Prince. He's fine. I don't see him as like a blue chip prospect or someone that you're really excited about, and I'm not passing on the opportunity to get my favorite prospect in years for him. So that's where I'm at on that.
That's fair. I'll take it.
Cool. All right. Well, that's it for the show, everybody. Thanks for listening. Please, if you like what you hear, want to help us get off the ground, help a lot if you can rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at MaxMCC11. You can follow David at the 4 Point Play. That's a Roman numeral 4. David's a classy gent. All right. Thank you, David.
Thanks very much, and thanks for anyone that tuned in. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Until next time.